you can attract purity to your life. It's why I put such an emphasis on drinking water for healing. It's interesting that when the kahunas talk about this God force, they always equate it with water. Water flows, water goes here, water has no boundaries. This energy is always thought of as water-like. I spent a lot of time in Hawaii. I spoke with several of the kahunas who had descended from a long line of healers. And I talked to them about healing and how it works. And how come some people have this ability to heal and other people don't? And they explained it to me like this, very intriguing. They said that the life force is really electrical in nature, or water-like in nature. Only water we can see. Electrical still flows the same way, only we just can't see it with our eyes. And this one great kahuna said to me, he said, being able to heal is nothing more than having an energy within you that is stronger than the energy of the person who believes they can't. All you have to do is have that energy be stronger than that. And he said, between your thoughts and any place on your body that you feel needs to be healed, like an ache or a pain or a disease or a boil or a headache or a backache or a cut or just a plain disease process of some kind that is located in a specific place in your body and you know where it is. He said, between your thought and that place in your body, there's a current. And the current is like an electrical current. And he's writing, I was writing this down. It was so fascinating. And he said, that current has charges. And these charges travel along that current. And between your thought and that place on your body, you can place what they call shadowy substances that will heal that sepsis or that disease or that pain. And the way that it works is that what you place along that current is your will. And your will is in the form of thoughts. And this energy that I'm talking about, this power of attraction, is really the power of your ability to think. It is your thoughts, which are not in the physical world. I mean, you can't get a hold of them. It is the power that you have to think. It is that power. And you can harness that power and place it along, according to these healers, you can place it along this current in the form of these shadowy substances or waves, and you can literally visualize or picture it going from your thought to that place. And you just keep that current filled with the will of healing. And that, he said, is how it works. And I must say that, some people have given me a lot more credit and so on than I believe that I personally deserve in this area of healing and so on. But when somebody comes to me whose belief in me is stronger than their own disbelief in themselves, I find I can help them. It isn't me, Wayne Dyer, this physical body that is here. It's this energy of knowing that healing is possible and that it's in every one of us. And that healing energy is something that all of us have. And that by putting your hands on or just convincing somebody or just letting them know that I have such a strong belief in you that you can be healed, that has a tendency to transcend the negativity that is the disease process. And that it isn't some magical faith-healing kind of thing at all. I mean, if you read the work of Bernie Siegel, and if you read Deepak Chopra, and you read Dean Ornish, and many of these people, medical people, who are talking about the mind-body connection, they're really talking about a strong sense of connecting to the chi, or the prana, which is just the energies. It's just another word for that energy, for that God force. And knowing that it's in you to be able to put along this current, this healing capacity. When Siddhartha, who was Buddha as a young man, was going through his experiences of learning about enlightenment as a young man, he was fasting for a great period of time. And his friend's name was Govinda. And when he was fasting and had been fasting for some 50 days, and his friend Govinda looked at him and he said, Siddhartha, he said, what good is fasting? And Siddhartha looked back at him and said, Govinda, I can laugh at hunger. Do you know how profound a statement that is? I can laugh at hunger. What he was saying is, there is that which is hungry. There is hunger, but the I that is God, the I that is connected to the divine, perfect, loving source, can look at that and laugh at it. I am no longer that. And therefore, it is just in the physical domain. But who I am is something much greater and much grander than that.
There's a river that runs through you, not a river of water, but of energy, of spirit, eternal, quiet, and profoundly alive. You were born into this stream not to grasp at the banks, not to cling to the rocks, but to flow effortlessly with the current of life. And yet, so many of us have forgotten. We hold on. We resist. We clutch stories and identities and pains like anchors tied to our ankles. We cling to the past, to expectations, to control, to what they said or didn't say, did or didn't do. We tighten our fists around things that are already floating downstream, believing that somehow in our clenching we are safe. But the soul doesn't cling. The soul flows. The ego clings, that manufactured identity born of comparison and separation. It clings because it fears dissolving. It clings because it believes in lack. It clings because it has been conditioned to survive by controlling, by proving, by protecting a fragile sense of self built entirely on illusion. But the soul knows it cannot be harmed. The soul knows it was never lacking. The soul knows it doesn't need to become anything because it already is everything. It simply flows like wind through trees, like breath in the lungs, like love that does not demand anything in return. When you wake up to this truth, not as a concept, but as a felt reality, you begin to see how much energy has been wasted in holding on. Holding on to what hurt you, holding on to who hurt you, holding on to who you used to be or who you think you need to become. It is all weight, it is all unnecessary. It is all the ego's attempt to control what the soul already understands, that everything is impermanent, and that impermanence is not the enemy, but the gateway to liberation. You do not need to carry what no longer serves you, not because it is wrong, not because it is bad, but because it is heavy. You were not made for heaviness. You were not made for tightness. You were not made to grasp. You were made to expand, to evolve, to become soft and supple and surrendered to the mysterious rhythm of life. You were made to flow. And flowing is not weakness. It is not passive. It is the most powerful act of trust. It is the choice to no longer resist the current of your own evolution. It is the courage to let go of the known and surrender to the vastness of the unknown. It is the decision to stop trying to control outcomes and start honoring alignment. It is the daily sacred practice of asking, where is life trying to take me, and am I willing to go? So ask yourself now, what are you clinging to? What story? What identity? What memory? What resentment? What version of yourself have you outgrown, but are still performing because it's familiar? And what would it feel like just for a moment to loosen your grip, to unclench your mental fists and allow life to move through you, not around you? Because here's the truth. When you release the need to control, you become available to grace. When you let go, you don't fall, you rise. You rise into the higher frequency of your own being. You rise into the flow state of the soul. You rise into a rhythm that is not frantic or forceful, but deeply peaceful, deeply wise, deeply loving. There is a quiet confidence in those who flow. They do not need to prove, they do not need to rush, they are not seduced by urgency or pressure. They move from presence. They listen to the whispers beneath the noise. They trust the signs. They walk away when it's time. They stay when it's true. They live not by force, but by alignment. You were never meant to swim against the current of your own truth. And what is your truth? that you are not the stories you've been telling yourself. You are not your wounds. You are not your resume or your failures or your reputation. You are not the name they gave you or the roles you were assigned. You are something far more eternal. A soul here for a fleeting moment, learning to remember who you are. And in remembering, you heal. You heal not by adding more to yourself, but by releasing what is not you. You don't become whole by accumulation. You become whole by subtraction. Letting go of the fear, letting go of the shame, letting go of the need for validation, letting go of the timelines, letting go of the weight. You don't need it anymore. You never did. Flowing means saying yes to your own becoming. It means no longer holding yourself hostage to a version of you that was necessary for survival but is no longer aligned with who you're becoming. It means trusting that what is meant for you will never require you to shrink, to strive, or to betray your own peace. Flowing means releasing the people who cannot meet you where you're going, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with deep gratitude for what they showed you and a quiet bow as you both continue your separate ways. Flowing means grieving what has ended, but not dragging the corpse with you. Flowing means allowing the space in your life to be empty for a while, not rushing to fill it with noise, distraction, or new attachments, but trusting that the empty space is sacred, that the void is the womb of your next becoming, that silence is not absence, but presence preparing you for more. So often we say we want peace, but we are unwilling to release the chaos. We say we want to be free, but we are addicted to our chains. We say we want to flow, but we grip the riverbanks with white knuckles. The soul waits patiently, never pushing, never punishing, just whispering gently, let go, let it flow, I know the way. And when you finally listen, when you finally soften, when you finally surrender, everything changes. Not because the world has changed, but because your inner world is no longer resisting the current of life. You stop trying to swim upstream. You stop arguing with reality. You stop fighting your own expansion. And in that stillness, in that surrender, you remember you were always the river. You were always the flow. You were never the rock. There is a sacred intelligence flowing through all of life, an unspoken harmony that arranges galaxies and opens flowers, that carries the tide and breathes your lungs without needing permission. That same force flows through you. It's not something you must earn. It's not something that depends on your achievements or your past. It is your nature. The soul is not something you possess, it is what you are. And the soul knows how to flow because it is not bound by ego. It does not confuse stillness with stagnation. It does not mistake letting go for losing. It sees the truth clearly, that everything you're afraid of losing was never truly yours, only borrowed for a time, a teacher in disguise, a season in the symphony of your evolution. The ego builds walls, but the soul opens windows. The ego fears death, but the soul knows only transformation. The ego asks, what will they think? The soul asks, what is true for me? And you must decide, moment by moment, breath by breath, whose voice you will follow. Do you want a life that clings or a life that flows? Clinging says, I am not enough, so I must hold on to this person, this job, this image, this pain, or I will disappear. Flowing says, I'm already whole, so I trust that what leaves is no longer aligned and what comes is already mine in spirit. One is fear masquerading as love. The other is love, pure and unshaken by circumstance. Let this moment be the moment you come back to yourself, back to the still, wise, unshakable presence beneath the noise of your mind, back to the space where you don't need to prove anything, where you don't need to fix yourself, where you don't need to get somewhere else. Back to the simple, sacred truth. You are already held. You are already guided. You are already flowing when you stop trying to be the river and allow yourself to become the water. You cannot flow while clinging, and you cannot cling while flowing. The soul invites you into a different kind of power, not the kind that forces outcomes or dominates others, but the kind that rises from radical trust. Trust that what is falling away is making space. Trust that what didn't work was never meant to last. Trust that the timing is perfect, even when it makes no sense to the mind. Trust that something ancient and eternal is always on your side, even when life feels like unraveling. Especially then, there is beauty in the unraveling. There is grace in the undoing. There is peace in the pause between chapters. And when you stop resisting that space, when you stop trying to rush through the uncomfortable unknown, you will feel something holy begin to open. The weight will lift. The breath will deepen. The tears will soften into prayers. The fight will dissolve into presence. And presence, my friend, is the doorway to the soul. When you are fully here, not regretting the past or rehearsing the future, you remember the only thing that has ever been real, this moment, this breath, this now. And in that now, the need to cling dissolves. Because you see, there is nothing to cling to. There is only this infinite moment of becoming. This is the invitation. This is the path. This is the liberation. To trust your flow more than you trust your fear. Your pain has shaped you, but it does not define you. Your story is sacred, but it is not your prison. You are not bound to what once broke you. You are not required to relive what you've already outgrown. You can thank the past for its lessons and then let it go. Not because you're denying it, but because you're no longer choosing to suffer under its weight. The past is not your home. The soul lives forward. You are not meant to stay where your spirit has already left. You are not meant to dwell in spaces that no longer resonate. You are not meant to repeat patterns that keep you small. You are not meant to make yourself digestible to those who cannot taste the truth of your being. You are not meant to betray your own peace for the comfort of others. You are meant to flow. And to flow, you must trust that letting go is not the end, it is the beginning. The soul doesn't cling to roles, titles, outcomes, or attachments. It doesn't demand proof. It simply flows faithfully, naturally, freely with the source from which it came. You are that source in form. You are that eternal presence expressing itself in a human lifetime. You are not separate from the divine. You are a unique, unrepeatable current in the ocean of God. And when you stop resisting that current, you return home to your deepest truth. I am not this fear. I am not this grasping. I am not this control. I am the one who watches it all come and go, untouched and unafraid. Flowing is not about giving up. It is about giving in. Not to weakness, but to wisdom. Not to chaos, but to the deeper order. Not to apathy, but to alignment. It is the realization that the more tightly you hold on, the more you suffer. And the more you surrender, the more you see life was never working against you. It was always working for your awakening. So breathe, soften, listen, let go of your agenda for a moment and ask the deeper question, what is life trying to show me? Where is it trying to lead me? What truth have I been avoiding? And what would happen if I simply said yes? This is not the path of the world. It is the path of the soul. It is slower, deeper, quieter, but it is also more powerful. It doesn't rush to fix. It doesn't cling to old maps. It doesn't need guarantees. It simply flows because it trusts. And as you begin to live from this place, your life changes. Not always in visible ways, but in foundational ways. You feel lighter, you react less, you forgive more easily, you stop explaining yourself to people who were never meant to understand. You find peace in solitude. You let love find you instead of chasing it. You speak your truth, not to convince, but because it's who you are. You live not from fear, but from freedom. And this is the deepest freedom, not the freedom to control everything, but the freedom from the need to let that be enough for now. Let it be enough to breathe. Let it be enough to not know what's next, but to trust that something sacred is unfolding. Let it be enough to release what you were never meant to carry. Let it be enough to simply return to the flow again and again, as many times as you need. You are not late, you are not behind, you are not broken, you are not too much or not enough. You are exactly where your soul needs you to be, learning, shedding, remembering, returning. Because you've never truly left. You've only been distracted, you've only been afraid. You've only been trying to manage a river that was always here to carry you. But now you remember. Now you feel it rising in you. The call to flow, the whisper to let go, the sacred courage to stop clinging and start living fully, freely, fearlessly. Flowing is a remembrance, not a destination. You don't become worthy of it, you return to it. It's what you were before they told you who to be, before the world wrapped its labels around your light. Before you learned to perform for approval or to hide your wounds beneath a polished smile, the flow was always there beneath the striving, beneath the shame, beneath the noise. It's the you that exists when there's nothing to prove, nothing to defend, nothing to cling to, just presence, just love, just the gentle, patient rhythm of your soul moving in time with the infinite. When you stop trying to carry the weight of your entire life on your shoulders, something holy happens. You begin to feel the hands of the divine beneath you, invisible, steady, holding you even when you can't see them. You stop gripping so tightly to outcomes, and you start trusting in the unfolding. You stop trying to make people stay, and you start honoring the way love expands when it's not possessed. You stop controlling the narrative, and you start living the truth. This is not complacency. This is not apathy. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is the deepest courage there is, to trust your inner knowing more than external noise, to walk away when it dishonors your soul, to release what you've outgrown, even when your hands shake, to say yes to the quiet, sacred, unglamorous process of healing without needing applause, to no longer make decisions from fear, but from the freedom of your spirit. You are not here to be weighed down by old stories. You are not here to live in someone else's version of who you should be. You are not here to repeat ancestral patterns of suffering because you think pain is noble. You are here to break the cycle, to breathe a new breath, to say, it ends with me, not in anger, not in pride, but in clarity, in peace, in love. You are here to choose differently. And every moment offers that choice, to cling or to flow, to resist or to surrender, to live from fear or from freedom. Some days you will forget. That's okay. Some days the grip will tighten again around your expectations, your history, your identity. But each time, the soul will gently remind you, you don't need to hold on. You are held. You don't need to carry it. You are carried. Letting go is not an event, it is a practice, a returning, a loosening, a remembering that the more you allow, the more you align, the more you trust, the more you transform. The more you flow, the more you heal, not by fixing anything, but by finally realizing that nothing essential was ever broken. You are not here to become someone else. You are here to unbecome everything that was never really you. Peel it back. The guilt, the people-pleasing, the perfectionism, the pressure to perform, the need to be understood by everyone, the urge to keep proving your worth. Let it all drop away. Strip yourself of everything that doesn't feel like truth. Watch how light you become when you stop dragging what you were never meant to carry. This is the miracle of flowing. It clears the space for the real you to emerge. Not the wounded self, not the performing self, not the pleasing self, the soul self, the one who trusts timing, the one who lives in presence, the one who doesn't argue with reality, the one who breathes deeply and walks lightly because they've realized that nothing real can be lost and nothing unreal is worth holding on to. And so the healing continues. It deepens. It doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't come with fireworks or grand revelations. Sometimes it's a quiet shift, the moment you don't react to the old trigger, the moment you choose silence over defending yourself, the moment you let someone go without needing closure. That's healing. That's flow. And you begin to realize that you are no longer in a rush. You are no longer desperate for answers. You are no longer searching for validation in eyes that do not know how to see you. You are no longer willing to abandon yourself for love. You are no longer willing to distort your truth just to be accepted. You flow now. You honor the rhythm of your own soul. You listen, not to the fear in your head, but to the knowing in your heart. You allow others to think what they think. You allow life to unfold in its own timing. You allow the unknown to be not a threat, but a temple. You are becoming free, not because the world has changed, but because you have. Because you no longer seek to control what cannot be controlled. Because you no longer fear the silence. Because you no longer need to carry every burden alone. Because you have remembered the sacred truth. The soul doesn't cling, it flows. And in that flowing, you begin to see others differently too. You stop demanding that they stay the same. You stop needing them to complete you. You stop blaming them for your wounds. You stop trying to convince, convert, or change them. You begin to love in a new way, not from need, but from overflow. Not from fear, but from freedom. Not to fill a hole, but to share your wholeness. You forgive, not to let them off the hook, but to unhook yourself from the chain of suffering. You release, not because you don't care, but because you've decided to care for your peace more than your pride. You walk away when needed, not in anger, but in truth. You stay when aligned, not out of fear, but out of love. This is the work of the soul. Not to fight, but to flow. Not to conquer, but to remember. Not to cling, but to let the river carry you home. And the more you do this, the more you will find that what is meant for you doesn't require effort to hold. It fits, it resonates, it flows with you. The people, the opportunities, the visions, they feel light, they feel aligned, they feel like truth. And those that don't, you bless them and release them. No resistance, no resentment, just clarity, just grace. You are not here to suffer. You are not here to earn love. You are not here to be everything for everyone. You are here to embody your soul. And the soul is not in a hurry. It is not in panic. It is not at war. It is water. It is wind. It is light. And it knows the way. Every moment you let go, something within you softens. The heart opens. The breath deepens. You begin to feel again not the sharpness of suffering, but the quiet pulse of aliveness. And in that aliveness, you meet yourself. Not the idea of you, not the projection, but the real you, the ancient you, the unshakable you. The one who has walked through fire and still chooses grace. The one who has lost so much and yet still sings. The one who has broken, bent, wept, crawled, and yet never forgot the truth, no matter how dim it became in the noise of the world. And the truth is this: you are not your trauma. You are not your past. You are not your wounds. You are the presence that witnessed it all. You are the light that survived. You are the consciousness that continues to rise. Your soul doesn't cling to pain because your soul knows pain is not your identity. Your soul doesn't cling to success because your soul knows success is not your worth. Your soul doesn't cling to certainty because your soul knows that life is never meant to be figured out. It's meant to be felt, danced, lived, flowed with. You begin to understand, not just mentally, but with your whole being. Resistance is the only thing that hurts. Not the event, not the loss, not the ending, the resistance to it, the refusal to let it move through you. The clinging to the idea that it should have been different. The obsession with rewriting the past in your mind. The ego screams, it wasn't supposed to be this way. But the soul whispers, it was. It had to be. not as punishment, as preparation. Preparation for what? For this sacred moment of awakening, this sacred return to yourself, this sacred choice to no longer live in bondage to the past, this sacred breath of surrender, this sacred decision to let life love you without needing you to control it. You see, now peace is not found in fixing, it is found in flowing. It is not found in having all the answers. It is found in becoming the space where the answers can land. And that space is still. That space is soft. That space is unclenched, unarmored, unafraid. So many of us carry invisible armor. We tighten around life, bracing for impact. We anticipate rejection. We rehearse abandonment. We prepare for loss. We protect ourselves from the very experiences that would set us free. But freedom never comes through defense. Freedom comes through openness, through willingness, through flow. Drop the armor now. It is not needed here. You are safe to be soft. You are safe to be open. You are safe to let go. And yes, your mind will tell you that to flow is to risk everything, that if you surrender, you'll fall apart. But the soul knows what falls apart is only what was never true to begin with. Let the false self unravel, let the story dissolve, let the illusion burn. You are not here to live a tightly controlled life. You are here to live a truthful life. And truth has no need for clinging. You don't have to force what's meant for you. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to hold on to love with a white knuckle grip. Love that is real doesn't need to be caged. It flows to you freely as an echo of your own alignment. This is the shift. This is the healing. This is the moment you become new, not by becoming someone else, but by shedding the untrue. And the world around you begins to mirror this. You attract with ease what you used to chase. You release what no longer resonates without fear. You speak your truth with clarity and softness. You stop asking, will they accept me? And start asking, am I accepting myself? Because the soul doesn't seek approval. It lives in integrity. And that integrity is not perfection. It's not a curated image. It's the quiet knowing that you are who you say you are, even when no one is watching. It's the soft power of being at home in your own spirit. It's the lightness of not needing to cling to masks. You are returning to that now, and in your return, you heal. You heal generations of suppression. You heal lifetimes of clinging. You heal the fractured relationship between your mind and your essence. Because flowing is not just personal, it is sacred. It is ancestral. It is collective. When you choose to flow, you liberate others. When you let go, you give others permission to do the same. When you live in presence, you become a lighthouse for those still lost in the storm of control. You don't need to save anyone. Your light is the invitation. Your flow is the medicine. So don't be afraid of the emptiness that comes when you let go. That emptiness is not void. It is space. It is room for the real to emerge. It is the fertile ground of transformation. And in that ground, new life will grow. Not because you forced it, not because you planned it, but because you became available to it. You flowed, and now you see that nothing real is ever lost, that what was taken was only ever borrowed, that what fell away was only meant to walk you to the threshold of your deeper becoming, that every detour was a necessary redirection, that every heartbreak was a holy invitation, that every ending was really a beginning dressed in silence. You see that clinging never protected you, it only exhausted you. You see that control was a disguise for fear. You see that your safety has never been in the known, but in the truth. You see that love, real love, never requires you to abandon yourself. And so you choose again and again to flow, not perfectly, not always easily, but honestly, gently, wholeheartedly, Because flowing is not about being above pain. It's about not becoming it. It's about allowing yourself to feel fully, vulnerably, without letting that feeling become your identity. It's about meeting yourself where you are while still trusting where you're going. It's about no longer carrying yesterday's weight into tomorrow's miracle. Then let us close, softly and clearly, like the last ripple of a river disappearing into the sea. You are not here to grasp. You are not here to control the current. You are not here to rewrite the past or manipulate the future. You are here to be, to open, to breathe, to allow the mystery to move through you like a sacred wind, to become so light that nothing sticks, nothing stains, nothing steals your peace. Flowing doesn't mean nothing matters. It means you no longer suffer unnecessarily over what does. Let the world change. Let people leave. Let dreams evolve. Let chapters close. Let the self you once were dissolve into the self you're becoming. Let it all move. Let it all flow. Because the soul doesn't cling. It flows. It trusts. It breathes. It loves. And it remembers always that nothing real can ever be lost. And neither can you. You are the river. Now flow. There comes a moment in every human life where silence speaks louder than memory, when the weight you've been carrying, the burden of what happened, what didn't, what should have finally grows too heavy to justify keeping. And in that sacred moment, the soul whispers something not taught in books, not preached in temples, not heard in the noise of this busy world. It says, let it go. Not out of weakness, not because you lost, but because the story you're repeating is no longer worthy of the divine being you are becoming. We are not born with our stories. We gather them. We inherit them from those who were wounded before us. We craft them from misunderstandings, from pain, from moments when love seemed absent. And then, like a script we never agreed to, we recite them again and again. He left me. She betrayed me. They never saw me. I was never enough. This always happens to me. And so we live in the echo of what was, even while life tries with all its miracles to remind us of what is. But my friend, listen to me with the ears of your soul. You are not your history. You are not your suffering. You are not the wound. You are the healing. You see, the story is just a frame, a container, a garment worn by the ego to prove its existence. But the lesson is eternal. It's what your soul came here for. And the universe, that sacred, intelligent field of love, it does not waste experience. Everything you've walked through, everything that broke you open, everything that left you trembling in the dark was a curriculum, not a punishment, a passage, but only if you drop the story. As long as you hold the tale, the villain, the victim, the blame, you are trapped in time. Your spirit becomes entangled in yesterday's fog, and what you cannot release, you are doomed to repeat. You may say, but it's true. It happened. I was hurt. I was abandoned. I was left behind. And you are right. It did happen. But you have chosen to keep the wound alive through the repetition of its narrative. Let me offer you something radical, something freeing. Truth is not in the facts of the past. Truth is in the freedom of the present. You do not heal by replaying the moment. You heal by retrieving the power it stole. That's what it means to drop the story and keep the lesson. The story says, I was unloved. The lesson says, now I know how deeply I crave presence. I will offer that to myself. The story says, I was betrayed. The lesson says, I now see the importance of self-trust. The story says, my childhood was broken. The lesson says, I carry within me the ability to reparent, to rebuild, to renew. This isn't denial. This is transcendence. You were never meant to live forever inside the storm. You were meant to walk through it and come out cleaner, clearer, stronger. The ego will tell you that to drop the story is to let them off the hook. But the soul knows you were never meant to hold them on the hook. You were meant to free yourself. Forgiveness is not the reward for someone else's apology. It's the sacred key that opens the door to your own peace. There is a beautiful truth that every mystic, every teacher, every awakened being comes to understand. What happens outside of you is not who you are. You are the awareness behind the experience. You are the stillness behind the noise. You are the one who watches the storm pass, not the storm itself. And when you drop the story, something miraculous happens. You remember your divine identity. You remember that before the hurt, before the name, before the form. You were light, and light does not cling to shadows. Letting go is not forgetting. It's honoring. It's saying, I respect this chapter enough to close it. That's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's the moment you rise above the battlefield and recognize no one wins when you keep reliving your wounds. Healing does not come through analysis. It comes through surrender. You will not solve your past. You will release it. Like a bird from its cage, like a flame from the candle, like a soul from its shackles. And then you will feel it, the space, the breath, the possibility. It returns. When the story dies, the soul finally speaks. It says, you were never broken, only buried beneath beliefs. It says, this pain was never meant to define you, only to refine you. It says, there is no moment more sacred than the one you are in now. Drop the story, keep the lesson, because the lesson is gold, my friend. It's grace wrapped in fire. It's the seed of compassion, of insight, of power. It's the reason you can sit beside someone else's pain and say, I see you. I've been there. I walked through it, and I made it out. You become a healer not by fixing others, but by becoming the living proof that healing is possible. But first, you must unclench the past. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you matter more. You must return to that still holy place within, where no story, no identity, no title, no trauma can exist. Only presence, only peace, only the now. Because in the now, there are no wounds, no resentment, no regret, only this breath and the divine being breathing it. So let it go. Let the old narrative fall like autumn leaves. Let the echoes fade. Let the images dissolve. And in that clearing, in that stillness, watch what rises. It will not be bitterness. It will not be fear. It will not be the voice of the past demanding your loyalty. It will be you, the real you, the untouched you, the soul that chose this life not to be defined by its suffering, but to alchemize it into light. And from that light, you will speak new words. Not words of pain, but of power. Not stories of survival, but songs of resurrection. This is the sacred invitation. Drop the story, keep the lesson, and become the truth beneath it all. You are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become from it. And my dear friend, you were always meant to become free. And so here you are, standing at the edge of who you've been and who you're becoming, a quiet threshold, a sacred moment not marked by applause or ceremony, but by something deeper, a choice not to fight the past, not to defend it, but to release your identification with it. It's tempting to believe the old story keeps you safe, that if you keep it close, you won't forget, you won't be hurt again. But that's not safety, that's stagnation. Life, in its infinite wisdom, is always asking you to evolve, to rise, to return. And to return, you must empty your hands. You cannot receive the gifts of this moment with fingers clenched around yesterday. You must become willing to live undefended, to open the door and walk naked into the now unarmored, unburdened, unafraid. Because life doesn't meet you where you were. It meets you where you are. When you drop the story, you become available again. Available to love, available to grace, available to a version of yourself that your old wounds would have never believed possible. And perhaps that is the point. To stop identifying as the wounded one and start remembering you are the witness. You are the one who sees not just what happened, but what is happening now. Look around you. Notice the breeze. Feel your breath. Sense the silence beneath these words. There is a field of being here still, sacred, waiting. And in that field, there is no need for defense, for comparison, for memory. There is only awareness. And from that awareness, forgiveness becomes possible. Not as a favor to the past, but as a gateway to the present. Forgiveness is the great unclenching. It is the moment you stop trying to re-script what happened and instead begin writing a new truth, one authored by your awakening, not your agony. You see, when you drop the story, you do not erase your life. You finally begin to live it. You are not here to be right about what hurts you. You are here to become free from it. You are not here to convince others of your pain. You are here to transmute it into power. And that transformation does not require a courtroom. It requires only your willingness to let the light in. The light doesn't need your defense. It only needs your surrender. Let go of the illusion that you must carry everything forward, that every scar must be visible, that every betrayal must be remembered. The soul remembers differently. It does not store stories. It stores lessons and love. And even the most painful moments, once seen through the eyes of the soul, become holy. They become teachers, messengers, gateways to depth, to empathy, to truth. There is a reason why those who've suffered often shine with the most compassion. Because once the story is dropped, only love remains. Not naive love, but earned love. The kind that says, I have walked through the fire, and I no longer need to fear the flame. You become a lighthouse. Not because your waters were always calm, but because you learned to shine anyway. That is the alchemy. To stop needing anyone to pay. To stop trying to make it fair. And instead, to become whole. You cannot become whole while holding the pieces of the past, like proof of injury. You become whole when you place them down and remember that nothing essential was ever truly broken. You've always had your wholeness. It was just waiting beneath the noise. Drop the story and watch what returns to you. Joy, not happiness manufactured by circumstance, but the quiet joy of being, of knowing you don't have to carry it anymore, that your worth was never tied to your struggle. Peace. Not the fragile kind that comes from controlling others, but the lasting kind that blooms when you stop controlling yourself. Love. Not the kind that begs to be rescued, but the kind that is the rescue. When the story is gone, you become available to life again, to the sunrise, to the laughter of children, to the grace hidden in ordinary moments. You find yourself smiling for no reason. You find yourself crying, not from sorrow, but from the sudden beauty of existence. You begin to remember that your life was never meant to be a courtroom of memory. It was always meant to be a temple of presence. And presence does not argue with the past. It breathes. So breathe into this moment. Breathe into the stillness that asks for nothing but your presence. You don't have to relive the wound. You don't have to prove the pain. You are allowed to let go without permission. You are allowed to be free now. This moment doesn't need your story. It needs your surrender. And when you surrender, the lesson comes forward. It rises like light from beneath the rubble. It hums with truth, with grace, with the gentle wisdom of your highest self. You are not who they said you were. You are not the sum of what they did. You are not the echo of the moment you broke. You are the quiet strength that rose. You are the healing that began. You are the lesson, not the loss. And you are here now, not by accident, but by design, to live, to love, to awaken. Drop the story, my friend. Let it fall like an old robe. Let it dissolve like a name you no longer answer to, because you were never that story. You were always free. There is a moment in every awakening where the soul begins to question not just the past, but the identity born from it. Not the events, not the memories, but the personality that was built to survive them. You see, the story does not only live in your words, it lives in your habits, in your posture, in your self-talk, in the way you tighten when someone gets too close, or in the way you chase achievement, hoping it will finally hush that old inner voice that once said you weren't enough. The story becomes a costume. It wears you. And after a while, you forget it was ever a choice. You call it me, my personality, my edge, my wounds. But it's not you. It's the version of you that rose to defend the most tender parts of your spirit. The child who stopped asking for love. The teenager who stopped trusting softness. The adult who learned how to perform, achieve, impress just to feel seen. The story taught you those strategies. And for a time, they served you. They protected the innocent part of your being until you were strong enough to return and claim it. But now, you are strong enough. Now you can feel the exhaustion beneath your masks. Now you can hear the whispers of the soul beneath the noise of your proving. And the soul says, softly, always softly, you can take it off now. You don't have to be the character anymore. You can come home. This is not about rejecting your past. It's about reclaiming yourself from it. Because the real you, the one you came here to embody, is not the survival strategy. It is the sacred essence that existed before the story and will exist after every narrative dissolves. Let me tell you something the world rarely says out loud. You don't need more improvement. You don't need more achievement. You don't need more validation. You need more truth. And the truth is this: you were always worthy. You were always enough. You were always whole. Not because you earned it, not because you achieved spiritual perfection, but because you were created from something sacred. Call it God, call it source, call it life, universe, or divine intelligence. But know this: what made you does not make mistakes. And it did not put you here to carry wounds like trophies. You are not here to be a monument to what happened. You are here to be a channel for what's possible. And what is possible, dear soul, is peace. Not the peace of silence in a quiet room, but the peace of knowing you are not chained to the past. Not the peace of others liking you, but the peace of liking yourself enough to let go. This is the revolution. Not outside, but within, where you look at your reflection and finally say, I am not the events that shaped me. I am the spirit that chose to grow through them. You begin to recognize the difference between pain and identity. You begin to feel the quiet ache of self-betrayal every time you shrink to match your old story. And slowly, courage is born. not loud, not flashy, but steady. The courage to let love in again. The courage to admit that your old armor is too small. The courage to imagine that maybe, just maybe, freedom is not found in controlling the future or analyzing the past, but in being fully here. You begin to tell the truth not to others first, but to yourself. You begin to notice when you're reenacting the old roles. You begin to ask, who am I when I'm not performing? Who am I when I'm not protecting? Who am I when I'm not trying to be what others expect? And the answers are breathtaking. You find softness. You find strength. You find a depth of being that cannot be captured in a story, only lived in presence. You discover that joy does not come from fixing what was, it comes from loving what is. You begin to see beauty in strange places, in the way your breath returns after a deep sigh, in the way the sunlight lands on a quiet room, in the way a tear rolls down your cheek, not from sadness, but from relief. The relief of no longer needing to carry it all. You can be gentle now, with yourself, with the past, with others who are still lost in their own stories, because you know something they don't yet. That pain does not make you special. It makes you human. And being human is not a flaw, it's the doorway to divine awareness. Only in this human form can you practice compassion. Only in this human heart can you learn forgiveness. Only in this human mind can you choose to see with the eyes of spirit. So choose to drop the narrative that says, I'll be free when. Choose to release the belief that your story must be understood by everyone else. Choose to trust that your healing is your own and it is enough. This is the quiet miracle, not lightning bolts, not sudden transformation, but the steady unfolding of a new way of being where you no longer have to be the one who was hurt. You can now be the one who woke up. And waking up means you don't need to relive it. You don't need to perform it. You don't need to justify it. You just live as freedom. You begin to walk not toward wholeness, but from it. You speak not to prove anything, but to bless everything. You look at the world with eyes that see beyond form, beyond ego, beyond role, and into essence. Because you've seen yourself that way. And now nothing else will satisfy. So bless the past. Bow to the teachers that gave you. Thank the storm for carving rivers into your soul. And then release it like breath, like birds, like prayers whispered into wind. Because what's ahead is not more repetition, but revelation. Not more pain, but peace. Not more story, but self. You are not here to repeat. You are here to remember. Remember who you were before the world told you who to be. Remember what it feels like to breathe without guilt, to love without fear, to live without apology. This remembering is the holy work of a lifetime. And it begins not with a battle, but with surrender. So surrender now. Surrender the identity that survived. And let the soul that thrives lead. And now, as the dust of all your retellings begins to settle, as the courtroom of memory closes its weary doors, as the heart, once guarded by storylines and scar tissue, finally exhales, you arrive. You arrive not in some polished version of yourself, not in some far-off enlightened state, but here now, raw, unburdened, and awake. You are not stepping into a future. You are stepping out of a prison. And that prison was never your pain. It was the identity you wrapped around it. It was the belief that the wound defined you, that the scar was your signature. But now, like a snake shedding its skin, you feel it loosening. The old story, the character you played so convincingly, the mask that once protected you now simply itches, and beneath it all is you. the true you, not the version that flinches in self-doubt, not the version who needs applause or explanation, but the deep, aware, sacred presence who has always been watching, waiting, remembering. Can you feel the difference? The silence is no longer hollow. It is holy. The stillness is not absence. It is essence. This moment right here is not a pause in your life. It is the return of your life. You are no longer searching for meaning in your history. You are now making meaning from your healing. And this is where the story ends, not with vengeance, not with resolution, but with reverence. You begin to look back, not with resentment, but with blessing. Not because what happened was right, but because what grew from it is beautiful. You start to whisper to your past self, thank you for surviving. Thank you for carrying us here. But now you can rest because the war is over. The version of you that lived in defense is no longer needed. The version of you that fought for love, begged for recognition, cried in silence, that version has earned its peace. Let it rest. Let it dissolve like mist at sunrise. Let the old armor fall to the earth like autumn leaves, with gratitude, with gentleness, with grace. Because now you are no longer armored. You are luminous. You are no longer trying to be heard. You are listening. You are no longer performing for belonging. You are belonging to yourself. And that is the ultimate freedom. No longer performing, no longer defending, no longer explaining who you are because your presence does all the speaking. You walk into rooms not wondering how people see you, but carrying the peace of someone who sees themselves. You speak not to prove, but to offer presence. You love not to possess, but to participate in the miracle of connection without clutching, without fear. You forgive not because they asked, but because your freedom matters more than their recognition. You breathe not to calm yourself, but because your breath is now home. This is what it means to drop the story. It is not erasure. It is emancipation. It is the radical act of no longer letting your past become your prophecy. And the most extraordinary part, you do not need to try to be this way. You simply need to stop trying to be what you're not. Because underneath every story, there is a soul, untouched, unchained, unshakable. That's you. That's what remains when the ego's theater closes and the light shines through the cracks in your identity. That's what God sees when you're not pretending. And in that space, you no longer need to be fixed. You only need to be felt. You no longer need permission to move on. You only need the courage to be still long enough to see you are always whole. And in this seeing, life becomes less of a race and more of a rhythm. You begin to move with the music of now, no longer trying to skip to the good part, no longer stuck on the worst chapter. You begin to live in harmony with presence. And presence, dear soul, is everything. It's the medicine. It's the altar. It's the final destination that was never far away. Presence is where you finally feel what your story never allowed you to feel. It's where the tears rise, not from pain, but from relief. It's where you look around and suddenly nothing is missing. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer resisting the imperfection. This is what freedom tastes like. It's not loud. It's not wild. It's not external. It is the quiet knowing that you can breathe without justifying your joy, that you can rest without guilt, that you can shine without explanation. You are no longer auditioning for peace. You are peace. You are no longer seeking love. You are love. You are no longer chasing light. You are the light revealed by the very letting go you once feared. And now, what remains? only your soul, your quiet, radiant, sovereign soul, the you that came before the pain, the you that lived through the storm, the you that rises now, not from anger, not from shame, but from deep spiritual remembrance, that you is who you were always meant to become. Not a better version, not a fixed version, but a true version. And in that truth, you become a presence that heals without effort. A mirror for others, not of perfection, but of possibility. People will feel it. They will sense it in your stillness. They will wonder how you carry such peace, such clarity, such unshakable calm. And if they ask, you won't need to explain. You'll simply smile and say gently, I dropped the story and I kept the lesson. And in those words is a life, is a path, is a practice, is a love so deep it cannot be taught, only lived. So walk now, not in search, but in remembrance. Walk not with a plan, but with presence. Walk not as someone with something to prove, but as someone who has already arrived, because you have, this is the arrival. This is the letting go. This is the peace beyond the story. So breathe in the silence. Breathe in the freedom. Breathe in the soul you've finally come home to. Drop the story. Keep the lesson. And live, truly live as the freedom you were always destined to be.